Well, at least we know. Change the name.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Commission to order. And Madam Clerk, would you please call?
Yes. Commission Chair. Commission Chair Marty Rosen.
Present.
Commission Vice Chair Bill Zimmerman.
Here.
Commissioner Tom Gidroys.
Here.
Commissioner Ken Gaunt. And Commissioner Richard Croy.
Okay. Last time. I never remember this. I really should. Ken, did you do it last time?
Okay.
Go, do it again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tom, would you remind me next time that we'll start on your side again? Okay. Okay. Are there any changes required for the minutes of November 20?
Move for approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. The next item is a presentation from Mr. Hicks from Southern California Edison. I want to thank you for taking the time to come here and talk to us.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm very happy to do that. I do, let's see, want to let you know that I appreciate the invitation. Often in development projects, you know, they sometimes forget about us. And so I want to tell just a short story before I get into the information. How many, have you been up by our service center at Menifee Road and Highway 74? If you left and turned right and then turned left on Highway 74, on your left-hand side is now our Valley substation. And on the right are two sets of 500,000 volt lines that are going north, and then you can watch and they go east. Those are part of the main transmission grid that we have. And I don't know if you recognize it, but how much that Valley substation has grown. It used to be maybe down to Biscayne, just a little south of it. Now it goes down almost to the tracks. It's one of 8, maybe 9, of our main substations that we have in all of Southern California Edison territory. So it's, we call it a Class AA. The entire area, Riverside, Moreno Valley, out Cabazon, all of that down to San Diego County line and southwest, that's its primary substation that feeds this whole area. Now, I mentioned that if you look to the right, you see the 2 transmission towers that are going north. The second row was actually, or line, was actually put in the last 6 months. But if you look at it, it looks like it's been there forever. And the reason I'm telling you that, and it's common sense once you hear it, it's really hard for us to get additional land for our growth. The NIMBYs and every other acronym you could think of are all out there. Now, that doesn't mean that my answer is no, but it's close to it. So we're going to have to work through some issues and it's going to take some time. So let me give you my message, and then I'll entertain questions from you. You know, I look young compared to most of you, and so I want to know, is it normal? I have a story for everything now. I'm going to be 59 next month. Is
You're a
that
baby.
normal? It is a baby. But that's normal as you get older, right? You get a story for everything. The Menifee 5K run, and this is my first point here. We don't own all the property where our lines are. there's the two, there's right-of-way or easement. Right-of-way means we own the land. Easement means we have an easement to be on that property. So the Menifee 5K run, I was called by, when it started maybe 4 years ago, by Rob Johnson, who was the management analyst at the time. And he asked if the city could have permission to run right on our easement and just go right through for the 5K run. And I put him in contact with our real estate team, and it ended up there were like 30 to 35 property owners that he had to contact. And that's the bad news on one thing. You know, you gotta, if it's an easement and you want to use that as a trail, you'll have to contact and make an agreement with each property owner that would be under, that owns that line where you're gonna be crossing it. Then you come to us to, there's the term here, to get our consent. So each, and over the years, you know, this used to be Cal Electric territory. Edison took them over in '64. And a lot of that, the area was farmland, and a lot was just a handshake and just writing it out before the attorneys got real involved. So each agreement is different in some manner. So we can't give a blanket approval. Well, first off, we can't approve it because it's not our property. But the property owners, it may be, they may have different requirements that we've put on them. On some, we said you can do anything with farming you want. Others, you can't put a building on there because if the line goes down, we need to have our big vehicles in there, and it could be a safety issue having a building in the way of a truck or where we want to get to. So each of those could and probably are different. So that would be the first step, is you contact the property owners, and then you would come to us for a consent. And what that means is on the easement agreement we have with that property owner, we get to make sure that whatever's going to happen there won't impact our operation, maintenance, and use of it. So an example would be if you were going to have, and I don't know the type of trails you want, but if in another city I had this issue where they wanted to put a site, oh, actually, it's your city. Up north, we met with a developer for the northern part, and he wants to put a sidewalk, sort of a rambling sidewalk. And I said, well, just to let you know, it's going to have to be about 8 inches deep because our vehicles, our largest trucks, transmission trucks, would have to drive over it. And even at that, we will say we're not liable if we break it. So there would be that type of restriction. And if you're going to put a building, we wouldn't allow the building within our easement, and so such like that. So before there could be any approval for right-of-way or easement, you're going to have some kind of plan that would, you would be showing the property owner and then showing us for the consent. So that's easement. Right-of-way is different because, as I said, that's where we own the property. And that's good and bad because the good is we would have more flexibility. And the bad is we normally buy the property for transmission lines, and transmission are 115,000, 220, or 500,000 volts. And if you're going to be going in and under those, I've heard soccer fields, we probably wouldn't allow soccer fields because I remember as a boy, you know, if you've got a ball, the purpose is to try and hit something. And if you've got lines there, or and we played football and baseball on the street, you know, and you play until you hit a car and then you run off. So we would, I mean, it's a case-by-case basis. That's the positive side of it, and specific where you're at. If you were close to, and I can't define close, because I'm going to give you the person who can, but if you were close to one of our towers, we have what's called anti-climbing guards that we would require you to pay us to put on. Because right now we don't, if someone was going through our right-of-way, we would call that trespassing. So if we were to allow you to use it, then it would have to be, we'd have to be considering safety requirements and such. And the bad thing, those cost about $10,000 per tower. Also, if on our right-of-way, we would have to charge you fair market value. One of the things, we're all ratepayers with Edison. The land was purchased with ratepayer money. So if we allow it to be used for something, it impacts the ratepayers throughout the system, not just the city of Menifee. So we would have to use the fair market value. There's a state code number 851 that we have to adhere to be fair to all. And like, we can't give seniors a discount if they were using that, or low income, we couldn't do that. We just have to charge fair market value. So, you know, I'll throw this out sort of as a life saver. I noticed on your agenda or your minutes from last week, you were considering charging, or the rental of one of the senior centers for the college. You know, and we have to, you got to be fair, right? You might have more flexibility than us, but you guys report to the council, we report to the PUC and other acronym labeled agencies. And so we have to make sure we're above board and fair to all. So with right-of-way, there's good and bad, and with the easement, you work out the deal with the property owner and then let it come to us with a consent. And so it's just a time thing for a lot of it. The person who would be your contact is Jay Glasser, Glasser, and his contact number is 909-873-7937. And that's really my story that I've got for you. Can I answer any questions? And
Well, I would like to just ask one thing.
sure.
The utility corridor up in Romaland, do you own it?
The 500, where the 500 lines are, the two big ones?
Along McLaughlin?
North,
East-west, yeah.
east-west. I'm not
I
familiar
know it's
with-
yours, I know it's 300 feet wide,
Okay.
and God,
Is-
it's miles long.
What, are there towers or poles that are on
Towers.
it? Towers. We probably own it. I found we don't own everything going north-south on those two circuits that go there. But we try to own everything on the transmission because that's the heart of our system.
Okay.
And having someone review the APN or the assessed parcel number would let you know.
Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Ray, for coming. You answered a few of my questions. And I just had a couple of quick questions for you.
Okay.
Regarding the trails and the easements. This is not for let's say, a transmission line, but let's say a utility line, such as going down Garbani or down Menifee Road. I know there's actually an existing trail that follows that. You gave me the answer I was fearing, which is when these things come up, or if there's a property that's to be developed and you want to include it, there's a lot of legal legwork that has to go into it to get that right of way, to make a trail, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of, for instance, I'm thinking of one project in particular, it's called the Trail Mark, where they have it's up off of Mapes, and where the transmission lines kind of take that turn to the east and go into the mountains there.
Okay.
There's a planned project that's going in there, and they've included as sort of a passive park, I guess you would call it, in their plan, that the transmission line kind of bisects their project, and it goes through the project, and they have, I guess, a meandering trail through it, and foot trails and stuff. So that, it is possible to do it, if I'm not correct.
I've had one discussion with them, so what they've got drawn down is not approved by us.
Right.
So, you know, they can draw anything, and I wouldn't take that as proof that it can be done. But
Okay.
the road that you see along, it's an access road for us to have our trucks drive the lines so that they can inspect them for cracked insulators, some kind of problem, whatever it would be. And that's it's not a trail along those, it's an access path for our transmission vehicles.
Okay. And the other quick question for you is, what's the current research or data regarding like the EMF transmissions? I know there's a lot of controversy about it. Is there any new data to show that it's, you know, out there?
Is this meeting being recorded?
They all are.
I'm joking. Distance from the lines. To answer your question, I don't know if there's how current the studies are, but I know that there are, within the last 5 years, there's studies people are quoting. But for safety around lines, distance is the key. We've all had the magnets, you know, the North and North Pole, and how they repel, and you can almost feel the lines of flux
Right.
that give the opposition. And as you go further back, there's less resistance. And that's the same with the readings that you get off of the meters when you're, if you're under a line or in your house.
Right.
I was just at we call it an open house on a substation project that's going to be down in Temecula, Murrieta area. And our EMF guys had a hairdryer, just a woman's normal regular hairdryer. And they put it, you know, 2 to 3 inches from their head, and the reading was about 9 or 10 microfarads, I believe it is. Well, that's capacitive. But the reading was 9 to 10, and they moved it 6 inches out, and it dropped to 1.5. So the distance, and that's just a small little, you know, fractional motor. So I don't know how deep you've gotten into it, but some studies have shown how it could impact the thyroid gland of a child. And there's others that, you know, show are neutral. The last I heard of a study, I didn't read it, but I heard of the study that was done for electrical employees, and the rate of cancer or thyroid cancer was within the same amount as a normal person who has a regular job. So, you know, you can find your answer whichever way you want to lean. But
Okay, yeah. No, it was just something I was thinking of, and because if you're going to try to plan a park or a public space of some kind, you're gonna have to take that into consideration, I guess. You know, that's what I'm saying. All right, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you. Mr. Hicks, I appreciate you being here. Just so you know, one of the reasons why we were hoping to have you come and talk to us is we have been looking for the opportunity to find a location for a regional park on the west side of the freeway, something similar in size to maybe Wheatfield Park or something like that. And so while we're looking for where could be an appropriate place, where's there available land, where's there are opportunities, one of the opportunities in that discussion was, could we place or purchase land that's adjacent to the public utility corridor or Edison's easements and right away, so that we can get more value for our purchasing power, I guess, if you will. So with that, before we got too carried away, we wanted to make sure that we at least heard from you and understand what we can and cannot do. You've told us some of the things that we can't do. Is there anything that you could add where we could consider doing some things, anything positive or that we might be able to consider?
Well, let me preface it by, I can't tell you right now you will be able to do this, because it has to be based upon the easement rights or the negotiations with our land services team. In the city of Chino, on Edison Avenue and I believe it's Central Avenue, there's a park called Ayala Park, and they had several circuits going through their park, and they had under there they had the grass park area. So there weren't any structures, but people would picnic under them, play under them, run under them. And then outside of our easement, over here, they had soccer fields.
Okay.
So this was more the area for congregating, and then you go watch your children play soccer. And that's a very strong possibility. We've allowed it there, and all things being equal, it would seem fair their way. The less intrusive, the better.
Okay.
Let's see.
How about a parking lot?
Yeah, that would be tough, actually.
How about a trail? We talked about.
Well, trails shouldn't be a problem because,
Well, you don't put contract, and let me address the cars, because our people think worst-case scenario. The earthquake happens and a tower goes down and cars are under it. People could be trapped, you gotta get them out of there and so forth before the repairs could be made.
Okay.
That's why we would say no. Yours was trail. If it's non-intrusive, we would, I'm trying to think of the term and I can't recall it. But you wouldn't ever ask me to put in a off-road motorcycle trail.
no, we're talking about
Yeah.
an open space trail, so we wouldn't even put down decomposed granite. It would just be left whatever it is now.
Yeah, if I was speaking to you about that, my concern would be degradation of it, ruts and such like that would come in. So who's gonna maintain that?
The city would maintain.
So then I don't know what objection we'd have, because if if you put bollards at the end, one end or the other, the bollards, they could be removed or the truck go through. You need to think of all those type of little things, because we're gonna wanna be able to get in there and fix it as quick as possible. It's probably in the 5-6 figures for a day or half day of money that goes through those transmission lines. So if they go down, just beyond the reliability, the safety, there's financial impact too. So we want to get that in and get them fixed as quick as possible for all the reasons that are good.
Well, with a trail, even if we were using a horse trail, you're not stopping, you're not doing anything, you're just walking. You're walking over the land, that's about it.
And so the concern there would be with, manure and pollution.
That manure, yes, of course, that would happen, but nature has a way of eliminating that on its own.
Well, as long as federal and state laws don't, and all that can be discussed, with Jay.
However, the concept of putting in even water over there, some kind of water line?
Yeah, that probably wouldn't, you don't want to negotiate with me, because I'm going to say no to
No,
those
I'm
things.
just saying, okay, no, that statement is
Trail
important.
would be a possibility, even if it were for, say, bicyclists or folks walking the dog.
I would expect it could be a possibility, yeah, because that's why you want to join those together.
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned fair market value. A trail is basically a linear park. Would it be possible then to just say, okay, this many feet across and this long, and that would be what we'd be, say, renting or leasing? It's just a small space, a sliver of land. Would that make sense?
I'm not going to go into that, because it makes sense, I'll say that. But I don't know what the impact of your trail to the other things that the corporate real estate department looks at.
Just try to figure out a way to do it with a little less expense.
Jay he's the expert in this area, and I just came to give you a big overview. Jay would be the one that you'd meet with to talk about, or, your representative would. He's going to need a plan, and if you just throw ideas, he's going to balk at it. He's going to want to see it so that he can give you facts instead of.
Okay.
And the problem with that, I'll be upfront, is you still have options that you're considering, and which ones can you do and not do. So, I would suggest humbly to take your best shot of what you really like, and then if we can't agree to that, then bring in your second choice or third choice, something like that. But that's how I would suggest, because it'll save everyone time. You want to go for the cake with the icing and the cherry on top, and let us take the cherry away, or something like that.
Robert?
Thank you, Chair Rosen. I think one of the positive strategies might be to have staff first take a look at all of the APNs that are within the corridor. Assuming that the majority, if not all of it, is Edison, we can, as a commission, have you guys look at where the trail can start and stop, where connection points would be, what type of trail, community trail versus regional trail versus a class 1, 2, or 3. I mean, there's a lot of variables there. And then we can make contact with the Edison representative, that Mr. Glasser, is that his name?
Correct.
And get his first kind of instinct response on that. And moving into the master plan process, chat with our consultants about what the community would also like to see relative to a proposed trail as it connects with our existing, I guess, proposed trail system, trail network that was part of the general plan. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I think Mr. Glasser's comments are going to be just one piece of the puzzle. So
Yeah,
there's a
but
start.
We will need to speak with Mr. Glasser. The trail in question isn't the only one that we would be dealing with. It's the biggest because that area is huge. It's 300 feet wide. Originally, we thought of 2 trails, one on either side. But all of that, can be negotiated. The other thing is that one goes east-west, and then we would have to hook up to a trail that's going to go north and into the Lakeview Mountains. So that would have nothing to do with Edison, but, that's obviously the idea. Now, there are other areas where Edison does have property and where they do not have overhead, wiring. It's obviously underground. And there too, we would like to be able to walk over it, so to speak. And my feeling is, from what, has been said here by Ray, that, it's a possibility. We would have to talk about it. So,
Yeah,
Yes, Rick.
I'd like to, you were talking about the Chino. I think it's, once again, let's pull up our Google Maps and have a look at it, because I think there's some real opportunity there. I mean, what you described sounds like something that could fit in that configuration up there, where you have a gathering area, and then maybe on the further south that meets the distance requirements, come up with a nice park.
It also tells us there is a precedent
Yeah.
that this has been done. Maybe we could reach out to the city of Chino and ask them about their experience.
There's one other one, and it's in Beaumont. It's in the Solera project by Del Webb, and my mom and dad live there, and it's beautiful what they've done. It's really just kind of landscape treatment, but they've got Edison's transmission towers that just bisect this project, and instead of it just being weeds and dirt, the HOA is actually paying for grass and plants and a DG meandering path, and every once in a while there's a little concrete picnic table. People walk their dogs. It's just kind of a gathering place. I think they've had some concerts in the park kind of things that happen out there too, just little gatherings, but it's low impact, and so.
And I do want to stress, because you used that precedence word, every parcel is going to be considered separately, individually. I mean, you're going to look at the trail, but because it works over here, the easement or our contract agreement may not allow it down here. And so we've got those easements, and we bought that property for the express purpose of transmission lines and distribution lines for our entire system. Not trying to put the kibosh, but I want to put context back, because that's really why we bought it. And if we can allow a secondary land use, then more people win and benefit, and that's wonderful.
anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Well, thank all of
Thank
you.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it very much. Have a wonderful evening.
too.
Merry
You
Christmas.
too.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Gentlemen, anything you'd like to discuss based on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. The orange one, yeah.
is there any way that we can get a kind of an overview, or do we already have an overview map of properties that are owned by Edison and
You know, a long time ago, and I mean when I first was thinking of working on the trails map system, I went to Ray and asked him for such a map. And he said to me that he could not provide such a thing because of they didn't want that out just in case some individuals wanted to blow up something. So because of that, they're not available to anybody. I don't know what else we could do about it, but I guess we'll just have to take it step by step. Robert?
Yeah, the city's been working on a GIS system, and I think it's been, Margaret, maybe a month or so that on the staff side, a usable overlay of APNs is available to at our disposal. So for any APN in the entire city, we can determine who the property owner is. And what I'm thinking of is the map that this commission reviewed, I think during this, just following the strategic planning workshop that we did, where we looked at the trails system that was proposed by the former Trails Commission, and we can overlay that with the APN map and also show the corridor, and you can see the connection points, and you can see who the property owners are. It won't show you if it's a transmission line versus, or above ground transmission, underground, tower versus, whatever. It won't show you that, but it'll show you who owns it.
And you could just drive over there and look.
Correct. So we could easily do that. But with that in mind, I think it's probably a good thing for the commission, any commissioner, to add it to an agenda for a future meeting, and we will come with that data in hand so you can look at it.
Would you put into words precisely how that would work out? Let's call it a review of IPN numbers along the corridor or over the entire city?
We could do the whole city. I think, and Margarita, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can probably zoom into APN's real time from the workstation at the dais, so long as it has the GIS web access that we have available on other workstations. Is that right?
I think we can upload it as a layer that we create. We can check with our IT department. At a minimum, we could have the PDFs so that you guys can look at that. We can also limit it to only the parcels that are being identified by the assessor's office as owned by Southern California Edison. And then in addition, have the public utility corridor along that, in different colors, so you guys can see.
Could we ask that be added to the next meeting of the commission?
Yes. So under, and it can be out of order as well. It's not terribly important, but for item 10, we can just add that. Item 10 on tonight's agenda, we can add that as a future agenda item, and based off direction this evening, we'll add it to the January meeting of the commission.
Okay, but let's call that the review of IPN throughout the city.
We can do APNs that correspond with utility Edison
Yeah,
corridors. Yeah,
but throughout the
With-
city,
with a
corresponding to Edison.
sure with a trail map overlay.
again, the big picture is we're looking for opportunities. And if we can increase our buying power and purchase a piece of property on both sides, and if it can be a grassy gathering area, it just complements the part that would be purchased or would be an actual city-owned park.
So something to add, every morning when I drive into town, I come south on 215, and just as I'm passing, or before I get to McCall, you kind of see the separation. You see I think there's, it's just past the RV park, not park, but RV sales lot. It sort of opens up. There's a mortuary on the left-hand side, on the east side. And then you see the transmission lines, right? And then just beyond, just right after transmission lines, you see all the residential, right? All the single-family residential. And it's this 300-foot vast, stretch that goes for miles in either direction. And what we know is that north of the transmission line, there's going to be development sometime in the future. And to encourage, whether it's commercial or residential development, it is always nice to develop the space between as, green open space, because it's more appealing for them to be able to sell that to tenants or to new home buyers or whatever. So I think there's some real value in doing it, even for future planning.
Yes.
You're right, and in our scoping session there, that was one of my things. It was, it's always nice if you can get a park that maybe the developer's required to put in a 10-acre park, and if, with some cooperation from Edison, if you can squeeze that and make it a 20 or 30-acre park as a passive area, that's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
Right by those power lines, they've been putting in I guess you'd call it a concrete trench as part of the new flood control. So that's also telling us that land can't really be used for very much. But right where they have those power lines over there by Ethonac, they're putting in flood control. So they're trenching it out, they're pouring cement right now. That's also telling us then that land is going to have very limited use to anybody else, which makes it, kind of, in my mind, more attractive for the opportunity we might want to put in there.
Yeah, anytime you have land that you cannot build on, I mean, that's perfect for us. I mean, we don't need to build on it. To have a park, or to have a gathering area, or a trail.
So something relatively passive.
Yeah,
but
passive.
Something could go in there for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of the development adjacent to the power lines and next to Line A is usable for residential development. I'm not certain what each stretch along the Line A and the corridor are zoned for, but they're usable one way or the other. Most folks who are ready to develop are waiting for Line A to go in, because it significantly reduces their obligation for flood control. So instead of them having to build X acres of basins to retain water off of the site and filter it as necessary, they can just let it go into Line A. It saves a ton of costs for them, and they're not paying that bill. So I think they're just waiting. It's all going to happen once Line A continues.
Unfortunately, any basin would work for us as well. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
Okay, so we will have that on the next agenda.
Thanks for setting that up, Robert.
Yeah, that was very nice. It really gives us an idea of what we have to do and we can do it. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Margarita, are there any public comments from all these people?
We have none.
All right. Discussion items. 7.1. Our work is going to really jump up now that the council has agreed to do the master plan. We are obviously going to be involved in helping that. We have to look at literally every kind of of development that's going to come in here and what kind of parks and/or trails are there. We have a whole list of items that we were able to come up with when we had our special meeting. All of this is going to have to look at, and of course, on top of everything else, anything that we do to try to increase the number of meetings that we have has to go through the legal process, which means that it's going to take several months to be approved from the time that the city council says yes. So I would like to open this up for discussion, to put the, this commission in the same category with the planning commission, namely to have 2 meetings a month, 2 regular meetings a month. Should 2 meetings not be possible or not be necessary, we can always cancel one, just like the planning commission does. But I don't see that as happening, considering all the work that's going to have to be done. In any event, people, what can I, yes, Rick?
And thinking about it, I think it's a great idea. My concern would be, obviously, let's make sure that we have staff recommend that if there's no doubt in my mind for the next while, whatever that is, a year, maybe even 2, there's going to be plenty to do, and I think twice a month we'll get it done. However, I can see at some point in the future, maybe things slowing down a little bit, and I would say let the 2 months, or the 2 meetings a month be staff-driven. If you think there's enough meat on the table there, I got no problem with it. Schedule's fine, so that's my thought, anyway.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll
Bill?
speak. I have mixed feelings on it. My concern is that we have a community services department, and it's made up of these 3, is that correct? And I guess what I don't want to do is burden that department with, the fact that they have to prepare reports and agendas and meeting minutes and all these kinds of things. I know that this department does an awful lot of things, much more than just parks and trails, all of our city events, CDBG things, all the stuff that the department does. And so my question I want to ask staff is, if we were to increase our frequency of meetings, would that take away from your ability to get the other things done that you're doing throughout the week?
I can't say that it would take away, but it certainly is more work. It's not less work. Typically, when an agenda is prepared for commission, requires a 72-hour posting notice, assembly of, and writing of staff reports, assembly of that agenda, dissemination to all of you. City Council gets a copy. Obviously, every time there's a meeting, there's minutes for those meetings, which have to get drafted and then incorporated into the following meeting's agenda. So, it certainly is another agenda, but it's also another set of minutes. What I would highlight is that, as you mentioned, there's other stuff that is going on. We have our Youth Advisory Committee, Senior Advisory Committee. We are establishing the MCAC we're going to ask Council to establish the MCAC as a formal committee. Right now it's not, and that'll be by resolution, which means it will officially meet twice a year. And so there is a lot going on already. It's not impossible to do more meetings. There is the possibility to meet more than once a month as a special meeting as well, which requires less advanced posting. It's just a 24-hour notice versus a 72, but still all the same reporting requirements. So there's flexibility. There's various ways to handle that. I do want to ensure that the commission knows that even though we've been given the authority to move forward on the contract with RGM for the master plan, it does not suggest that we can essentially call RGM to be at any commission meeting that we want. We will be having a kickoff meeting with them in January to set a meeting schedule where we'll know definitively when they will be here, which stakeholders they'll be talking to, and certainly I'll be chatting with each of you about your availability for when they're here, when workshops occur, and so on. Those meetings can happen as a formal meeting of the commission or as a community workshop that commissioners are present at. There's a variation. So I hope that answers your question. We're here to serve, first of all, but anything that can make that a little easier for us, we certainly would love. But that's neither here nor there.
It does answer my question, and really, I was just wanted to find out if, in fact, we were to encourage, and if the council were to approve us 2 meetings, if that would be a detriment to your staff and your ability to accomplish the things you're doing, or if it doesn't matter. That sounds to me like it's something that's not a big problem for you.
Yeah, not a huge problem. It's just more time. That's all.
I would like to try to get some information from AGM for us to look at. Remember the schedule that was put up by by them at the last city council meeting? Can we get that? A copy of it.
Yeah, it was in the former agenda packet that came to the commission, but I can email out a copy of just that page that has
Right.
the agenda or the schedule. That's no problem.
Okay. Am I wrong in assuming that all of the activities associated with your department really should be helped by us? Any activity that's going on? I think that, for example, this was the first time, but the tree lighting bit, I think we should have been involved and helped you. There are any number of things we could have done to help, both here and there. Of course, we didn't know about it until after the fact, which of course didn't help. But I think in the future, when city activities are being handled through the parks, some recreational activity, really the commission should get involved.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think there was quite a bit of marketing surrounding the event.
Oh, no, I understand. And it was the first time and all the rest of it.
I don't know that relative to events like that, there's a lot of policy that the commission can weigh in on, although reporting back to the commission is something we certainly want to do. Staff can make a concerted effort to ensure that all commissioners are part of the planning process. That was the first community event, or the first event that this city approached as a community effort. And really, it was the only way to get it achieved because of the small staff. So what we can commit to do is that for future citywide events, when we put out a solicitation for community groups to be a part of it, we can include the commission on that invitation. So if you're available,
You should
come to the table.
keep in mind that we should be there. And I, for one, would, as long as I get notice, I will do everything I can to be there. So, among other things, you need extra hands. You've only got 3 people. All right? So that would just be another way of helping.
Great.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just
Rick.
want, yeah, I think what Marty's trying to say is, give us a call, even on even if we can show up to help you physically with some of the physical stuff, more than happy to help, that's it's all about.
So is this group, maybe we need to find out how everybody feels. We kind of had a suggestion, and I kind of agree with it, to have the option of meeting if need be and have a special meeting called. Would that be better than asking the city council to approve a set 2 meetings every month?
I think it would be better to have the set 2. You were on the planning commission. There are times when you don't have something to do, you get a meeting canceled.
That's right.
And you can easily cancel it. But to get it is going to take a bit of work. And at the moment, I think we have the backing to get it. Can't say what's going to happen in a year. I'm sorry, yes.
I was just, I'm not thinking out loud, special meetings would make sense, accepting that when RGM starts to engage with the city, and we may be involved with them, pre-scheduling it gives the public a greater opportunity to hear and know what's going on.
And if we have 2 meetings a month, we could schedule one of them for
Folks could say,
AGM.
okay, let me
We'll
mark my
we'll do this
calendar. I know
on
not
that
tonight,
particular
but
day, yeah.
I'm looking down the road, it might make sense in that context.
Ken?
Mr. Chairman, when we first started discussing this, I think at the last meeting, I think it briefly,
I don't recall.
I've kind of been leaning towards sticking the way it is at 1 month, 1 meeting a month. And then, but the more I think about it, with what's happening with this new master plan and all the things that are planned coming up in the future, I see no reason why we can't request or change it to request to go to the 2 months, 2 meetings per month. And like you said, we could always cancel them if necessary. It'd be easier than the other way.
Yeah, but considering all the things on our plate, I don't see that canceling happening.
Yeah.
But, anybody else? Then I'd like to call for a motion to go to 2 meetings a month.
Just to clarify, it's a recommendation to city council, basically to have staff amend or submit a ordinance to amend the municipal code that
That
essentially
would-
sets 2 meetings a month,
Correct.
right? Yes.
Anyway, any wording you like. But yes, that's what we'll end up with. So, anybody?
I would make that motion.
Okay, the motion is made by Rick. How about the second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rick, second by Ken. Boy, I'm good shape. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to need a
Roll call.
roll call, I think, right? Because this is going to require a change to an ordinance.
Okay.
So please,
Commission Chair Marty Rosen,
yes.
Commission Vice Chair Bill Zimmerman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tom Gidroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Ken Gaunt, and Commissioner Richard Croy.
Yes.
Okay.
Throw it out there.
Robert, if you would please see to that, and again, any help you need, let us know. Okay. All right, let's go to item 7.2. And is there a staff report?
I'll go ahead and turn it over to Margarita Corneo for the balance of the item.
Okay, just very briefly, we wanted to let you guys know that this past Monday, the city worked on submitting a letter of intent to the Bloomberg Philanthropies Public Art Challenge for a $500,000 grant award to help support the development, construction, and operation of the Central Park Art Pavilion, amphitheater, and related events. This was similar but a separate application altogether to the one that was submitted about a month ago for the Public Arts Challenge. And this is a continued effort to try to be able to expand that Central Park site to really have public art kind of component to it and really develop that arts pavilion that we've talked about in the past, which would include things like the infrastructure needed and equipment to have artist kiosks, and also really expanding that amphitheater to accommodate to multiple types of performing arts. So there is no action required by the committee today. This was a letter of intent, which is the first step of the application, similar to the public arts one, I'm sorry. Finalists will be invited for a full proposal application after review, and that is tentatively around February. At that time, if we are invited to do a full proposal, we would be looking for like letters of support, and actually Arts Council was designated as the primary partner. This application itself is looking for that type of collaboration between private and public. So while the city is the main applicant, Arts Council would be the nonprofit working closely, as well as Regent Properties. So they've actually already been kind enough to submit a letter of support, and we've kept that with the file should we be invited for the full proposal.
And you don't want a letter of support from the commission?
Well, that would be submitted at the time of the full application proposal, and yes, that would be helpful to the application itself, so we would come back to you guys for that. Yes.
Okay. I would like your input, yes.
Mine is really a question. Is there some rationale or a strategy for going after $500,000 instead of the full $1 million?
Yeah, just based off of the awards given to other agencies in the past, there was limited availability for what it appears to be capital. This, if you compare it to the other grant LOI that we submitted to Art Place, that was primarily capital. This one is a mix of the two. Without having enough time to really vet how program dollars will be applied over a 2-year period in the amount of $1 million, we wanted to err on the side of caution and not be too overzealous in the first go-around. That was pretty much all, though.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Rick?
A quick question regarding the letter. Should we draft a letter, one letter from the commission and everybody sign it, or would you like to have separate letters? Something to think about.
I think we can probably wait until we get that formal invitation, because there's likely going to be a list of questions and criteria. We don't know what they're going to ask, and some of those questions may be answerable in that letter, so I wouldn't want commission to waste any time knowing what to put in there until we're really asked it. Versus from an organization like Arts Council Menifee, we know the capacity of what they can do, and so unless we get a different list of questions from them, or we go back to them for it, it might be a different story. So.
Okay. Good.
So, anyone else?
I'd like
Yes.
to know a little bit more about this organization, Bloomberg Philanthropies. How did we find them? Who are we
Could
up
you
against?
please speak into the mic?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about Bloomberg Philanthropies and also who we might be up against as far as also competing for this money.
Well, for eligibility, it is open nationwide. It is a foundation by Mayor Bloomberg, or former Mayor Bloomberg of New York City. So he funds not only this public art challenge, but he actually has they have a similar program under the foundation that they open annually. I don't recall if it's up to $1 million too, but it's very similar, kind of focused towards kind of quality of life projects. To qualify for this particular grant itself, it has to be centered around public art, and there has to be a collaboration between public and private, and the city itself has to be 50,000 people or more. So any city that's 50,000 people or more is eligible to apply. So it is a fairly competitive program.
Thank you.
Yes, Bill.
I just want to say I'm very happy that staff has decided to go after this, and I encourage you to go after as many of these as you can. You just never know. Sometimes it takes 10 or 12 tries to get one, and so keep up with the efforts, and hopefully one of them will be successful, and this would be great. I mean, something like this, here we are building a Central Park, and we've heard from the developer that there's financial limitations with what they're able to do. And so if we can, couple these types of funds, boy, we could really build something nice and hit a home run. So thanks for the efforts.
I did want to highlight, as it was mentioned in the prior item, with a staff of 3, digging deep for resources can be a little challenging, but I can say that we've got on staff in Margarita some really good skill sets. I know that we had sent her and I think another staff person to a grants training not that long ago, and there's another one coming up. So in reading some of the responses to at least the LOI questions and prior grant questions, I think there's some good content that we can put in based off the responses she's been providing. So I'm hopeful.
Good, me too. So what does ratification mean? What are we doing?
Ratification means that we already submitted it to ensure we met the deadline, but we wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of it. You really don't have to have any action. Our attempt in the future is going to be to get these in front of you ahead of time. Given the short timeline from when we found the grant, from when it was due, that wasn't necessarily possible, but if we're invited to apply to the full program, we'll get this out in front of you before it's due.
Okay. So there's nothing for us to do with this until it comes back. Let's go to the next item. Director comments?
Just a few. Commissioners were provided a update, tracking report of our capital improvements so far. Alan has been working pretty diligently on this list, and there are more that aren't on here yet, we know. But I don't want to read over all of it, but I will highlight a few that have changed since the last time you saw it. If you jump down to the AMR Sports Park, new park furnishings, and recall that when the park was given to the city, there was some site furnishings that weren't quite to commercial public use. So those changes have already concluded. We had a vendor out there swapping out, and now you can go out there and find steel epoxy-coated trash cans and benches in the places where the teak ones used to be. A lot more durable, and to be honest, a lot more appealing. So far, we haven't seen any of them drag themselves into the skate park. So we're happy with that. Lau Marsh Planner, as well as the Pete Peterson Park Planner beautifications are almost done. We have mulch delivery that's happening, Alan can correct me if I'm wrong, but as early as next week, and will be spread, and those will look really nice. The point-to-point irrigation is in, and all the planting is in. So it's going to be a good little facelift, easy project facelift to those parks. The Lau Marsh Park irrigation pump replacement is complete. There was low flow, low pressure, and since that's been in, it's been a lot better. One that is not on the list in front of you, but is on our horizon, is doing the same project over at Lazy Creek Park. Right now, it was never outfitted with a booster pump at all, and that was likely because when it was installed back in the old days, there was not the same plan for the full residential build-out. So the same line that's feeding the park, the main line is feeding the park, is feeding the residential area as well. A booster pump is in order to make sure that all the turf is irrigated properly. Right now, it's not. So once that's in, you would likely see that the turf establishment make a quick 180 and look a lot better. So others to highlight, K. Siniceros, interior, exterior improvements, the statuses on those are below. Those are CDGB funded. We've passed environmental on the interior. It's in design right now, and you can see we're looking to have that start in the new year here. And then the exterior improvements, it says environmental, although I think we've surpassed that stage, and we are going to do the design feature ourselves. I don't know that we are going to need a help from an outside design firm to do it, which is nice. It means we can speed it up a bit, don't have to go through a formal bid for that piece. Most of it is cosmetic on the exterior. So that's going to be moving forward in the new year. And Cherry Hills Boulevard street medians up to Area 3. Areas 1, 2, and 3 essentially extend along Cherry Hills from Bradley headed west. If you count 3 complete medians, right, it's the block right before Sun City Civic Association. That's all been completed. Looks great. Alan did a great job with the contractor getting those done, and we've received a lot of positive compliments on that. We're looking to, if you go down to the next item below it, in the Sun City, along Sun City Boulevard, take a sharp right turn up the street north on Sun City Boulevard and do the same type of improvement in the median there. The only thing standing in our way there is getting utility establishment. The water line is not in existence there, so we can do that. It's not a huge deal, but there is money in the median account to take care of that. But that would be a pretty sizable project and extend from Cherry Hills all the way up to McCall. Let's see, and the last one I will highlight on this list. Oh, I did already talked about the Lazy Creek booster pump. So that's pretty much the update on those. We're really happy with the outcome of the tree lighting event that took place. We know that a realistic challenge of the event was not having sufficient parking, even though every available or allowable parking spot was taken. And when I say allowable, Regent was gracious to provide us with what we could. We essentially filled up the temporary parking adjacent to the site, as well as 2 full soccer fields full of cars and a little bit more, so about a half a soccer field more. Over 500 cars were parked there. We estimate about 3,000 people attended. So it wasn't for lack of trying. One of the challenges was access to the site. We were only allowed to come in and out of one drive versus coming in off of La Piedra. Next year, we understand La Piedra should be open and that we would have access to additional lots. So we are preparing for a higher volume in the coming year, but these are realistic challenges we had this year. It's a good problem to have in our opinion. But overall, we've only received positive feedback on the event. So I saw Margarita had something else she wanted to provide an update on.
Yeah,
Before we go to Margarita, could I just ask you something about that?
Mhm.
We're going to take a look at that several months ahead of time to try to decide how to make it easier for people to get there. I know I've heard from multiple people who were very unhappy that they couldn't get in. It was a nightmare as far as gridlock, and they decided the hell with it, and they went home.
Yeah, as I mentioned, in the next year we'll have 2 points of access. So we're fully aware of it. We didn't have a traffic flow problem; we had a parking problem, which is really out of our control. So in our efforts to ramp up the quality of programs that we provide, a reasonable risk is popularity. That comes with the territory. But in terms of being able to look at the event, to prepare for these things, I think staff has some pretty good skill sets to do that. We can certainly provide an outlay of what an event will entail to the commission, but for application and execution, I think staff is ready to do that. They're skilled enough to do that. Some of this is dealing with the limitations of our partnerships too. So we'll be sure to bring you sort of a preview of events coming
May I
forward.
also suggest that in addition to the tree lighting, that you have maybe a menorah lighting?
Yeah, we've heard a lot of that kind of feedback as well. So, yes.
Okay. Agree.
Oh, the only comment was the other kind of big project that you will be seeing immediately starting with the new year will be the playground resurfacing that got approved at last night's council meeting. And that's at E.L. Peterson Park, Lazy Creek Park, and Nova Park. So it's expected to be completed basically by the end of January. So that'll be something that
It's
to look
not on our
for.
list. Oh, on the other page, that's where it is, okay. No. Last one on page 2. Tire-derived product grant. That's why I didn't recognize it.
The base layer is recycled tire material,
It's a rubberized for surface, okay.
and then the top layer is virgin plastic with the colorful part of it.
Now, am I correct in that that gets extremely hot?
No, it doesn't. You're thinking of the base layer, the derived product. That's essentially the recycled tires. It's
Right.
black. It can absorb heat. It retains heat. But what goes on top is, as Alan mentioned, a virgin product. It's a plastic colored and coated product. Doesn't typically get terribly hot, no.
So it doesn't allow the heat from underneath to get in, or the heat from outside to get under it?
I'm not sure how it would. It's covered completely.
Okay.
So from side to side, the sun it's not permeable. It's only permeable to fluids, to water. So,
Okay,
so unless it were hot water.
okay. All right. Next item, commissioner reports. Are there any?
I'd just like to comment about what you mentioned. I tried to get to the tree lighting. I was one of the people who couldn't get in.
Oh, you too.
And I would have liked to, and I understand it's a great success to have 3,000 people there. Extrapolating on that, we have committed to having the city birthday party in that venue, so we need to figure out how we're going to be able to cope with even greater numbers of people. The first thought that crossed my mind while I was sitting in traffic that night for 45 minutes was we need maybe some off-site parking and some small buses or something to move people in and out, to try and free up the road and also to make sure people can safely traverse back and forth. And some of the seniors, I'm sure, too, would have liked to have attended, but without transport, they probably could not. So just a passing thought on that. I also would like to ask, while we still are having our meeting, have we had anything come back to us from Animal Control regarding Pete Peterson Park and maybe watching what's going on there? There was a lady at last night's council meeting talking about it again.
Yeah, not from animal, we did ask for animal control what their response is, and it's really complaint-driven. So the lady who came to the podium, Ms. Sharkey, she would call in to them to respond. You know, they're not based out of Menifee, they're based out of San Jacinto, so dispatch is an issue. So at last night's meeting, the mayor did ask through the city manager for the department to take a closer look. As I explained to Ms. Sharkey in offline messages, the issue is less about what ordinance, laws, rules we have on the books and more about enforcement, right? Because even if we change the hours of the dog park to, say, 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning, there isn't a body there to tell those folks bringing their loud dogs, I'm sorry, you can't come in yet, or I'm sorry, your dog's too loud, you have to leave. The solution to a problem like that is either a volunteer program to enforce it, which is sometimes risky, a park ranger, or having a more accessible animal enforcement division that can do that. So there's a lot of avenues. All of them we know will have a cost. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Excepting maybe the Citizens Patrol?
Right. That's one option. They typically are available mostly for events, not so much regular patrol.
Yeah, I
But
know
yeah,
they don't confront people, but they
Yeah.
could be there just as a presence to let
Yep.
folks know if you don't behave, we're going to call the sheriff.
yeah.
But that, so animal control is out, that's off the table.
It's not off the table. It's just they have a limitation, just like our sheriff's department does. You call to complain about something, they have to dispatch someone over, and you just don't know when they'll arrive.
So it doesn't synchronize. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add on to that? I really think that it's a good idea to, if we can, to change the sign. It says dawn is when the park opens.
Dawn to dusk, yeah.
And if there's any way we could change that to say 7 a.m., that was primarily Mrs. Starkey's issue, was that it was very early in the morning when people were arriving. And if the sign still says dawn, and they're getting there at 5:30 when it's dawn, whether there's enforcement or not, people are complying. But if it says 7 a.m., at least when we do figure out how to get compliance, at least the sign's already correct. So that's just my recommendation.
Okay. What do you feel? I mean, is that possible?
That's easy to do. That's what we've already started. So
Oh, okay.
it requires an amendment to the ordinance. So we're working on that.
Great, good.
I also would like to bring up, if you recall, last night, a lady got up to talk about the need for an additional building for seniors. And my question was, why was she allowed to do this at city council, why wasn't she just told to come speak to the commission? I mean, what we're talking about is a park-related item.
She, like every other member of, or resident of the city of Menifee, can exercise their First Amendment right.
Oh, yeah, that she can
So
speak.
She's allowed to do that any place. She's actually one of our senior advisory committee members, and I think her effort, her interest was in making sure her voice was heard relative to the park master plan, not necessarily for advocating on behalf of a specific facility. She wanted to ensure that when the master plan occurs, it incorporates the community's interest in a facility that you mentioned. So,
A second facility,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
along with a swimming pool
yes,
for seniors,
yep,
heated.
yeah.
Okay.
There's going to be, and I'd like just to forewarn the commissioners, there's going to be a lot of interesting desires and wish list items that come along with the master plan process through the design charrettes and the workshops. People in the community are going to want the world. We know that. That's part of the process, but the consultant's job is to sort of screen and sift through that, determine what's most realistic based off populations, age groups, and all of that great stuff, and then really put together a document that is a realistic roadmap. So if it's a Miss Arendine wish plus, plus a, Commissioner Zimmerman wish list item, all of those things get merged in together, so.
Mine should have priority.
I'd like to mention also, I read in the paper that Wildomar is coming up with a master plan, and that's not going to take very long. They have 3 parks, so.
In their entire city,
In
they
their
have 3
entire city.
parks.
And they're not using consultants, they're just doing public input.
Right.
Different situation, different scale.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ken, did you want to say?
No.
Okay. Next item, future agenda requests. Is there anything else that commissioners would like to add to that list? We've already added the review of the APN throughout the city for Edison with a trail map overlay. But is there anything else? Hearing none? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We're adjourned.
All adjourned.